Okay, good morning again, everybody. Are you refreshed from coffee? Yes. Good, okay, so hopefully that will keep you awake and sustain you through this first keynote for the conference. So, the topic of my presentation, as you may have seen from the schedule, is from passwords to biometrics, and I've subtitled it, In Pursuit of a Panacea. And I'm not going to suggest that we're going to find one, but nonetheless we'll have a look at the different opportunities that the different types of authentication technology can afford for us. So, in terms of the structure, we'll begin with a bit of scene setting, and then a bit of discussion around the issue of traditional password-based authentication, which is a technology amongst all the ones I'm going to present that I'm fairly sure you'll be familiar with. We'll establish that as we get closer to it. And then we'll look at the rise and increasing prominence of alternative authentication approaches. And again, many of these I'm sure will be things that you're familiar now with using, and that will take us through to the concept of active authentication, which is a bit of more recent terminology, and looking at how we can perhaps leverage some of these technologies together to provide a more holistic, perhaps ongoing means of authentication for users that becomes more, to use a word that was used earlier in one of the sessions, transparent in operation during our activity with technology. And then finally, some conclusions. So I think it's fair to say that the authentication landscape for us as users has traditionally been dominated by secret knowledge approaches, things like the personal identification number, the PIN, and passwords. And I would go as far as to say that it's still largely dominated by those technologies. There are others there, but the majority things that we use are these traditional secret knowledge-based approaches. So tokens, biometrics, have in the past tended to be the preserve of larger organizations. But in more recent years, very much more recent years, they've begun, particularly in the case of the biometrics, to be something we're now beginning to see in our everyday, day-to-day technology. Okay? So today, the situation is more diverse. The lay user, the average user, who I shall refer to probably a few times, is far more likely to encounter things to use beyond just the traditional secrets. Alternative multi-factor approaches are now things that the average user will directly have had a chance to experience in their own lives, rather than just something that they might have read about in journals, magazines, or heard about on the TV. More people now have actually had first-hand experience of using these technologies. Now, the things that have driven the change, well, one is the increased security needs of certain types of services. So, for example, online banking is a good case in point where